Hi everyone, welcome to a new series at AFP Community Channel. My name is Vinita Muthu and I'm a Development Ambassador at AFP. As part of the Gyan Yatra project, we today have with us Dr. Ilaben Pathak, founder of AWAG, based in Gujarat, India. Every year, thousands of women in India suffer from domestic violence. They suffer in silence behind closed doors. And in many homes they are abused physically, verbally and emotionally. Domestic violence is widespread in the poor as well as the middle class communities in India. And AWAG's mission is to raise voices against the abuse inflicted on women. So let's hear from Ilaben herself how she sees AWAG and her work. So Ilaben, if I may start first by asking you, what inspired you to set up AWAG?
It's a complex affair in a sense. I was a freelance journalist, I was a professor in a college, and I was interested in women's issues. So I realized that NGOs around me were working only on welfare of women. And I thought we should start off on development of women. That's how we set up AWAG. But within a couple of years we realized that the most important issue for women is to survive. There were so many deaths around and I could see that violence against women is the chief issue at which we should look.
Right. So, tell us a little bit more about the work of AWAG in terms of any success stories that you may have or an example of the work that AWAG has done so far.
It's like, let's say a girl sitting through our awareness raising workshop which we had started very soon, and she comes to us and says that I'm suffering a lot, can I come to live with you? That asked us to begin a short stay home also, and we said yes. Then she came again and said, I have 2 children, will you take them also with me? We said yes. The third time she came, the person in charge was a little annoyed. Do you really want to come? Because you are asking and not coming. And the next day she came in with her 2 children. And years later, I am very happy to tell you that she became a very good person at stitching, garment making, and right now she has even walked out of our garment center and taken a job of a supervisor in another trader's place, which is quite a lot.
It's amazing, yeah. That's quite a success story. Yeah.
There was another. Parents of the girl came to us and said that, look, my daughter is in great danger. When we go to her home, they don't allow us to see her. And we don't know what kind of situation she is in. So we took the parents with us and to ask them to make a habeas corpus petition in the High Court. The High Court asked the girl to be brought, and when she was brought, the parents took charge of her. And then we started a long litigation about getting her maintenance. Right? Then it was about 6 months that the litigation continued, and on the last day when the verdict was given, the magistrate said that yes, she should be granted so much for herself and so much for the child. And my social worker and the lawyer were so happy exchanging greetings with each other that we just won the case. And looked around for where she was. And look at her, she was talking with her husband, the husband asking her, will you go home with me? And she asked, if you beat me, I will not. And then he said, no, it's okay, I won't. And then she went with me. So that required a lot of understanding on her part, her strictness about self that she will no longer be beaten, and then her husband's understanding that this is not the way to live. And we think
that's a very interesting story, because not only did the woman in this story come out and became very confident and managed to free herself from,
but the husband also
the husband. Actually, that brings me very nicely to the next question. Are there any kind of misconceptions about your work? So, for example, I mean, this is a very good story you just gave us about how the husband also understood the bigger picture about women's human rights. But are there other misconceptions? For example, there may be other members of the family, or maybe even women themselves, who perhaps are not quite understanding the motivation behind your work.
That is one of the things that happens when we go to the police station. Then the police would greet us as that here are the breakers of families, and we should not encourage them, that kind of thing. And then we have to take them into confidence, so much that we have sensitization workshops for the police, because we want the police to register the complaints of women. What happens again and again is the larger world, as you might say. Say, for example, recently the new law, civil law about violence against women came into existence in India. And again, I naturally wrote about it in a weekly column that I write in Gujarati newspaper, that here is something wonderful, very good for women, and they don't have to now go to the police station. And men who do not want that their wives should go to police station, or women also do not want to go to police, would be here better off. And immediately there were reactions. I received shall I say, 10 letters from what you might call civil society, saying that this is misusing women's power, this is abuse of power, and you are unfortunately taking women to the wrong path, because families would be broken and whatever. So that comes along, and I'm unhappy that people who are educated also do not look at women as individuals. They only want to see them as wives, daughters, a peaceful kind of entity.
So obviously the misconception is quite prevalent.
Yeah. There are, and shall I add to this that recently we studied judgments given by High Courts of Gujarat, and there also we found that the judges did not seriously consider the batterings of wives as human rights violations. They only said that these are trifles, trivial, wear and tear of matrimonial life. How can you accept that? So we were very much unhappy about this, and of course we want to raise a hue and cry. But we found that even the Supreme Court judges also did not take this as violation of human rights, which I think is pretty sad.
Although it is now a law in India, isn't it?
It is, despite the legislations, and they had to decide whether after battering the woman committed suicide, or whether it was not abetted. We say that if the husband batters her so much and if she commits suicide, it is abatement of suicide. And they refused to accept it. They say that the evidence given was of 3 days earlier, and she committed suicide 3 days later. So it is not the violence against her that made her commit suicide. That's how they said, which is very, very, very unfair, and that's what we think.
Right. How does AWAG train men and women? Because I know AWAG does a lot of work towards helping not just women but also men for livelihood chances and so on. So how does AWAG train them? What sort of things do you do to help them advance their skills?
We have the we are in Muslim area, Muslim dominated area, and most of the Muslim women have the skill of running the sewing machine. We upgrade their skills and make them stitch export level garments and get job orders, and so these women can complete the job and get ordinarily 2,500 rupees a month, which is good income for them. As far as rural women are concerned, we are doing, say, putting a group together, and the group is asked to nurture a kitchen garden. Our idea is that nutrition be joined to income generation later. So the first things we ask is we take their blood sample and see how anemic they are.
Mhm.
So after 6 months, after 2 seasons of kitchen garden, if they do not improve on their hemoglobin, well then they are taken to task that this is the first thing that you have to eating, because this is done in an area which is a drought prone zone, and they didn't eat green things at all. So, but now after 4 cycles, they have started selling their products also, which is good.
Very good.
But about men, we try to make them aware about the women's rights. Not take them into the income generational area, but at least making them aware of women's rights.
What challenges do you face at the moment in terms of, say, for example, I know you covered the legal system and how that is difficult. For example, the police, the concept, the cooperation with the police, and maybe the family taboos that are also around. I know you covered them briefly in your questions before, but are these the challenges that you face? Are there any others that you face while having women?
Largely, you are branded as a person who is always going to talk about women, and I don't mind that. But this coming up as adversarial kind of thing,
right,
that doesn't help. And funding. People do not want to fund us.
Okay, last question. Do you have a motto you live by?
There is no alternative to hard work.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ilaben, for taking time to speak to AFP today. To continue this discussion online, please log on to www.gyanyatra.awfp.org.uk. Thank you very much.